Why did we change our name? It's a question I've actually been asked since I joined the company. When are you going to change the name? Marshall Edwards actually has a long history. It was founded in Australia over a decade ago. It's always had compelling science. It's had encouraging clinical data. Unfortunately, it ran and executed an ill-fated phase 3 clinical trial a couple of years ago, which ultimately led to its demise and subsequent cleaning of house. Dan Gold, our CEO, was brought in about April 2010 to basically breathe some life back into the company. I joined shortly thereafter, and we knew from the beginning that eventually we would change our name. We knew we didn't like the name. I think everyone agreed, and we didn't think that was impetus enough to change the name simply because we didn't like it. To further complicate matters, we were a public company and didn't feel it was worth dedicating the time and energy and money to change the name at that time. So in the course of 2 years, we in-licensed the compounds that we were developing. We now own exclusive worldwide rights to those. Both of those are into the clinic. One has finished a phase 1. And as we're preparing for our phase 2 trial, we thought now's the time. We are fundamentally a different company than we were 2 years ago. And we thought, rather than come up with something cute, spend a lot of time and money coming up with a new name and brand, we just evolved from Marshall Edwards Inc. to MEI Pharma. The first step in the process of changing the name was coming up with a name. We did toy with the idea of coming up with something entirely unique. We ultimately settled on MEI Pharma simply because it was an evolution of Marshall Edwards Inc., and we think at that point we were an evolved company. After we decided that, it was essentially logistical after that. We are a public company. The next choice was whether or not to change our ticker as well. We decided to go ahead and do that. It was a minimal cost, and we figured if we're going to go ahead and get a clean start, let's go ahead and change the ticker as well to remove that artifact going forward. And then it was a matter of coming up with a logo that would essentially fit within our existing brand, which we thought had aged quite well over the past couple of years, and we managed to pull that off with some help as well. Again, all the while mindful of cost with respect to our shareholders. So once we settled on a name and that we were going to change our ticker and a new logo and had our look and feel essentially established, then it came down to implementation. And that was, there were more steps than I think most people probably appreciate when it comes to changing a public company's name and ticker. From the signage, obviously, to stock certificates, to employee benefit plans. And it was just a matter of just checking those off systematically until it came until about a week or two prior to the implementation of the new name and ticker. We put out a press release, obviously, so that no one was surprised. And I think our biggest fear was that morning itself. There was some anxiety that people might wake up, perhaps had missed the news, and suddenly our old ticker, MSHL, had disappeared from their portfolio, and there might be some panic. In the end, that didn't happen. With the help of NASDAQ, we were actually able to get a photoshopped image of our name and logo and ticker out in front of the NASDAQ building on Times Square, which we displayed prominently on our website. And I think that addressed most questions that morning. We got a few phone calls. What happened to Marshall Edwards? And assured them we didn't go anywhere. We're just now MEI Pharma. I think the single biggest reason for changing our name may serve to be the biggest benefit as well. I think the old name Marshall Edwards, it just didn't do a good job of explaining who we are or what we do to those who had never heard of us before. The name Marshall Edwards doesn't give you images of a cutting-edge oncology drug development company, whereas we believe that MEI Pharma, at least at first blush, explains exactly what it is and what we do. And we think that will pay dividends when it comes to courting potential investors, potential partners, as we get closer to our phase 2 clinical trial and those discussions start to heat up. I think for other life science companies that may be less than pleased with their name, there are obviously a number of things to consider. But once you've settled on a name and you have a strategic purpose for it, and obviously executive buy-in, I think it's important to allow enough time to implement the change. There may be more steps than you think, particularly if you're a public company. I'd probably allow 6 to 12 months at least in preparation. And then it may make sense to target a specific date to roll out the new name and ticker, if the case may be. And in our case, we had a June 30 year end, a July 1st fiscal year start, and it seemed appropriate to roll out our name in conjunction with that to give ourselves a fresh start going into the new fiscal year. I think it can be a lot of work, but if done right, in the end, you're left with a name that better suits you, better reflects your identity and your purpose, and hopefully something that will benefit you for years to come.